My name is Marlon. Welcome to this episode. Whether you're listening to this as a podcast or if you're watching it on YouTube or if you're just seeing it on my blog, welcome. If you are listening to this as a podcast, if you could give me a review, that would help. I don't usually ask for these things, but I figured might as well put it out there. If you take a moment to give me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're catching your podcasts, that would be great. If you're on YouTube, give me a follow, subscribe, and leave me some comments. Let me know if you found this meaningful. My blog also, or just on social media, reach out. Let me know what you think of these kinds of episodes. This is a different episode. This is me reflecting on my life. I just turned 39 in January of 2023. So I'm almost 40, and I figured it would be good to stop and reflect. And I'm also going to be linking to some other blog posts that talk about just me reflecting back on life. I've done this a few times. So every now and then I like to do this. And if you find this valuable or helpful, let me know. And what this is I'm thinking back on my life and I'm thinking about what are some of the things that I found helpful, that were meaningful, that contributed to the good that I'm experiencing now. I'm enjoying some good things in my life. I think I have been at every stage. But as I reflect on what's good and what's going well, what's working in my life, and I look back at what contributed to that, that's what I'm reflecting on. So it's not bragging. It's not look at how I have it all figured out. No, but I am focusing on the positive. And maybe we can do another one where I share on things that I'm struggling with. And there's many of those. Thank you for joining me on this journey. This is a personal reflection episode. And part of this, I'm going to do it if I was giving myself advice. If I was talking to younger me, what kind of advice would I give myself now looking back? What are some of the things that I think were beneficial? So we'll jump into that, and I'll start with family life. So family. I believe I have benefited from a strong, solid family. I don't share this to brag about my family. I think my family is great, but just to encourage you, if you're someone who is not married, or maybe you just got married, or considering starting a family, you're going to have kids, these are some of the things that I found that my family did, and I'm talking about my core family before I got married, so my parents, my sister, and then I'll transition to my current family, my wife and my kids. But what did my parents do that I feel like I'm benefiting from right now? What went right, as a way of guiding maybe new parents or prospective parents if you're thinking about becoming a parent. Or if you are a parent, you're wondering what's most important. These are my opinions. This is what I have benefited from. This is what has been good in my life. So one of them, the main one, or the first one, not necessarily in order of importance, but the first one that came to mind when I was making this list, is I am really grateful that my parents are still together. They've been together, from the beginning, from when I was born until now. And I count that as a privilege. Having a present father and mother in my life growing up has given me a sense of stability. So if you're thinking about getting married, I'd love for you to consider it from what I see as a biblical perspective, which is when you do this, it's for life. And if you are married, I'd say invest in it. Now, if you're already divorced or if your parents are divorced, there's nothing you can do about it. I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm just saying if there is something you can do, this is something that I feel has been really important. Also, growing up, in my household, the way that it happened is I never seen my parents raise their voice at each other. I know they would disagree on things and we would come together as a family and have discussions. And I'm sure my mom and my dad behind closed doors would have their disagreements. But as a child, I never witnessed that growing up. I know they're not perfect. I know they don't agree on everything. They're humans. But I never witnessed that to the point that it made me scared or made me feel insecure in any way. That was me growing up. I felt like it was meaningful, and for whatever it's worth, I'm sharing with you because as I reflect on my life, I feel like that's something that was positive. So for whatever it's worth as encouragement to you or as a challenge to you, there it is, growing up with both parents. They're still together to this day. I never witnessed any yelling or violence or anything loud like that in my house. It was mostly positive, and even the negative things were handled in a way that I thought was respectful. At least these are my memories, thinking back on growing up. Also, and this is something that I take on myself as a father, I guess, so transitioning to that, my parents always made it very clear that I was loved, and I try to do that for my kids. So for you who are listening, if you're a parent, and I'd encourage you to make sure that your children feel secure in your love. That's one of my goals as a father and as a husband. So towards my wife, I want her to feel secure in my love always. And my two children, I want them to always feel secure in my love. So even if I am frustrated with something they're doing, even if I disagree with them on something, I never want them to feel like I'm rejecting them. Rather, it's their behavior, their action, maybe it's their position and I disagree with it, but I never want her to feel less loved or that I might not love her as much because of that position. I try to separate the two. No, you are loved and I love you regardless, and I'm always going to be fully invested in you. And part of that is why, we're having this disagreement, or why I think it's important for you to change this thing. And, you have those conversations, but always never with the threat of love ending or shifting. And this is a challenge. And I believe this is what I'm striving for. I'm not saying I always succeed, but at least this is the goal. And when I look back on my life growing up, I felt like, yes, I messed up. Yes, I frustrated my parents and I angered them at times. And it was obvious, but I never felt like they loved me less. So this is my goal as a parent. I want to always love my children, even when they upset me or frustrate me, and I might have to, grab them and say, what are you thinking? What were you thinking when you were doing this? Whatever it might be, I want to always let them know I love you, but this behavior has got to stop. I love you, but I really don't want you to do this. It's going to be harmful to you in the long run, or whatever the case might be. And even with my wife, if I disagree with her on something, like, honey, I love you, but can we do this differently? Is there a different approach? And this is what I'm aiming for. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I always do this, but this is what I am aiming for. This is something that I think is good and positive. And along with that, the idea of mutual respect. I witnessed that in my parents. They really encouraged me to behave in a respectful way towards them and towards my sister. Not that I always did that, but that was encouraged, and it was modeled for me. So I believe that mutual respect within the family unit is very important, because as I learned to respect my parents, I believe it makes it easier for me to respect other figures of authority in my life, teachers, professors, anyway, on and on, people who are in a position of leadership above me. I think, respect is very important. And I believe that respect that I learned as a child with my parents, it also facilitated me advancing in life, in careers, in relationships, and work. So I think that respect is an important lesson, and to find a way to teach that to your children, or even if you're a single person listening to this, just having that, living that, having that as an aspect of who you are as a person, being a respectful person. I think that mutual respect is extremely important, and especially in marriage, it helps the marriage to work. If you lose respect for your spouse, or if your children lose respect for you, it just makes things more difficult. So this is one of the values that I think are present in my life, and I feel like I have benefited from having it. Another one is honesty. Growing up in a Christian home, honesty has always been a big thing. I'm not saying if you're not a Christian, you're not honest. I'm just saying it was one of the pillars in my home growing up, and my dad was really big on this, and this was founded or based on the Bible. That's our foundation for our moral values in my home, in my family growing up. And my dad always made a big deal of this. I remember as a child one time telling a dumb, stupid little white lie, and my dad and my mom made a big deal out of it. And they told me, son, it's important that when you speak, we can trust you in the words that you say. It's important that you're always honest and truthful. And this is something that has stuck with me. And I try to do that with my kids, make sure that I'm always encouraging them to be honest. And I try to be that way as I interact with people around me. So all my relationships, professional or family or friends, I try to make honesty always a cornerstone of everything, of the dialogue, of the way that I interact. So honesty is a big one as well. So I encourage you, and I find that being a big part of my life, I have benefited from that. It has made my life easier, even though at the moment, many times it's difficult to be honest. And I still struggle with, okay, I want to be honest, but what's the best way of saying it? I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be offensive, but I do want to be honest. So I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's worth struggling in that direction. At least that's the direction that I am aiming at. Honesty is the goal. And then how do I go about it? And I figure it out as I move, but at least that's a direction to aim for. And along with that, I feel like growing up, I always had a clear and consistent moral compass. So my dad always made the Bible the foundation of the values in our home, and I feel like that has been consistent, it has been clear, and I try to do that for my children and for others around me. I think that having a clear moral compass makes it easier to navigate life. Now, there are still questions and there's still challenges, but at least there's a compass to help navigate and direct that. So I find that helpful. I'd love to know your thoughts. What has it been like in your family? Do you disagree with me? Do you have anything to add to this? But these are my views, and connected to this is the idea of marrying the right person. Now, if you're already married, it doesn't matter. You invest in your spouse, and there's always exceptions for cases of abuse and other things. So here is as a general rule that I have found helpful to me. I'm passing it on to you. Yes, there are outliers. There's exceptions to the rule, but as a rule, I'd say marry the right person to the best of your ability. Marry someone that you're going to be investing in for the rest of your life. Once you're married, that's it. The time to shop around, to look, to wonder, and to consider, it's when you're dating. It's when you're single. But once you choose to get married, once you say those vows, stick to them. And make sure that the vows are appropriate too. So lifelong commitment, exclusivity, right? It's me and my wife is the only person for me, and I invest 100% in her because there's nobody else. There is no plan B. There's no other option. It's just my wife. So I am happy to invest in her because I find that an investment in my wife, in her health, in her education, in her emotional well-being, if I love her and I invest in her and I want to help her and I want to see her prosper and do well in life, it's an investment in me and my kids and my family. So I think it's great to marry the right person so that you can just go all in your marriage and know that it's worthwhile, know that it's the best thing that you're doing. So to brag a little bit on my wife, I believe that because of her presence in my life, I am a better person. I believe that because she is with me, I am able to accomplish more. And she's just a great person to be by my side when I'm struggling and when I'm happy and facing life's difficulties and figuring out things and making decisions. She's someone that I respect. She's someone that I want on my corner. She's someone that I am happy to invest into. And when things are not going great, I still remember, no, this is my wife. This is the one that's going to be by my side forever. She's the one, she's my partner, right, in life and everything. So I am glad to invest in her, and this is sort of the thing, right? I pour my love into her. I want her to feel secure in my love, and we're a team. So whatever I can do to help her, like right now she's in school finishing her graduate degree. And yes, I am picking up more work around the house and with the kids and other things, but it's for a season. And I'm more than happy to do that because she did that when I was getting my graduate degree. So we help each other. We support each other. And there's seasons where we invest more in her because of what she's going through. And there's seasons where she invests more in me because of what I'm going through. And together we invest in our kids. And we're always in this together. So marry the right person. Don't rush into it. But once you're in it, be all in. And for men especially, as a man speaking to men, if you're a woman listening, it's okay, but this is mostly for the men. I feel more comfortable talking to men being a man. When you marry someone, your spouse, your wife, be all in. Be the hero of that love story. Be the one who makes sure that things are going to work out. As far as you're concerned, be the one to start, with the I'm sorry. Be with the first one to start with the reconciliation. Lead by example. Be a loving person, honest, respectful. Work hard. Defend your family. Protect. It's just a challenge for you. Be the type of leader that your wife and kids would love to follow. As opposed to saying, I'm the man of the house and you have to follow me. And no, be the type of leader that they're more than happy to follow. So those are my, the information. This is the advice I give my younger self. And I think it's investing in your marriage, investing in your spouse, investing in your kids is a good investment. And once again, this is the ideal. And I aim for that. And of course, I know you listening, you may be going through different situations. Maybe you're in an abusive relationship. So there are other situation. At least this is the ideal that I aim at. I believe that a solid family is a great blessing in all areas of life. It has shaped my spiritual life. It has shaped my professional career. It has shaped me as a human being. So I really believe in the family and investing in the family. And I hope that that comes across as encouraging and not discouraging. I just want to encourage you in that direction. If you're looking at something to invest in and you're married or you're considering marriage, invest in your family. Next one is community. And I mention this because I am a full-time pastor. I work with a church. I'm currently with the Cloverdale Seventh-day Adventist Church in Boise, Idaho. And I believe we have a good church family. And not only that, I believe that I have benefited from a strong sense of community related to church all along. So I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor when I was young, and he is a pastor now. There was a time that he took a little break and he was working as a marketing supervisor for some stores in Brazil. Anyway, that's a whole different story. I might have mentioned that in one of the other podcasts. But the idea is church as a community. So I'll start by saying when we moved to the United States. So when my family moved here, my dad was in his 40s, I want to say, or under 40. I'm not sure. Anyway, so my sister and I was 12, she was 10 or 11. I was 12, about to turn 13, and we came to the United States. And when we arrived here, we arrived in New England. And, we don't speak the language. We're not fluent in English. My dad was the one that spoke the most, but not fluent. And the idea was to come here and to study English. That was my dad's dream. He had saved up so that he had enough money to live here for a year, to pay for tuition, rent, food, the books, everything for a year, and then go back to Brazil. That was the plan. So when we arrived, at the school, it was Atlantic Union College in Massachusetts, and we arrived and we needed help, obviously. And it was the church family that was there to help us through all of that, to getting adjusted and finding things. I believe there was a big thrift store. They're connected with the local Adventist church, and they helped us with pots and pans and clothing, winter jackets. My sister and I didn't have anything. My family didn't have anything like that. We lived in Brazil on the coast. It was warm and it was sunny and it was great all the time. It was never cold. I mean, the cold weather was you wear a long sleeve and it was rainy. That was it. So we were completely unprepared for this. We had to buy everything. And if you've ever had to buy winter gear, it's very expensive. So everything was just donated to us, or we bought it very cheap at the thrift store. And that's huge. Arriving in a country and having that community to support you, to guide you, to help you with different things, as far as my sister and I in getting to school, and my dad and mom and figuring out things and resources and food pantries and places to get things that was affordable. And so we went through that, and I believe that the church was a huge help for us in that sense. It was a community that was there that we belonged to, and that's one of the interesting things about the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's present globally. So anywhere you go in the world, if there's church there, you have community. You have some place where you belong. You have a place where you can get help. And I've experienced this many times, not only here, in Brazil, in Europe, and in Thailand. I visited these different places, and everywhere I come, if there's a church, there's a place where I belong, there's a place where I can get help, there's a place where people are more than happy to go out of their way to help me with the needs that I might have. So as a result, as a church pastor, I want to provide that for my community, for my church members, and even for members of our community. So here at Cloverdale, we have a thrift store, we have a food bank, and we're always looking for ways to help the members of our community, those who are in need. When immigrants show up, when people lose their things because they're moving, or there was a fire in California and sometimes the families move here, and we try to help. So I believe that there is a benefit to the church and to that sense of community and to that desire to go out of our way to help those who are in need. And I'll be talking more about the benefits of not just church, but religion as we continue to progress through this. But looking back in my life, I really feel like I have benefited from that sense of community and sense of belonging that I got from my local church. And I try to provide that now as a leader. And I believe that we do a pretty good job here at Cloverdale. But also, I guess let me go back and mention some of the other churches that I've had the privilege of working with. My very first one was the Weslaco Seventh-day Adventist Church in Weslaco, Texas. So fresh out of college, I came into that church, and I feel like there was a lot of growth that took place. I had a great senior pastor, Pastor Jerry Christman, and there was a boarding school attached to the church, and so I got to be involved with the school, with the youth, with the young adults, start a ministry on the campus of, it was, what's it called? It was UTPA first, University of Texas Pan American, and now I think it's called something else. UTRGV, University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, I think is what it's called now. But anyway, I had a great experience there. From there, I went to Andrews to get my Master's in Divinity, and then I came back to the Edinburgh Seventh-day Adventist Church in Edinburgh, Texas. And then I had a great time there, working mostly with the young adults. We got small groups going, continued the ministry at UTRGV, there, University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and just reaching out to the community, to the college students, and doing Bible studies and different things. And I could do a whole episode just on that and the benefits of that. And one of the great things about these two churches and community, a lot of my friends to this day came from those churches. They were members of the Weslaco Church. They were members of the Edinburgh Church, and we still interact on social media, and we still celebrate the good things happening in each other's lives as we grow and we get married and we have kids and things. And I love that, this sense of community that I have. I have friends in so many places because of these church experiences. Now, yes, there were challenges, but I also believe I grew and learned so much and received great blessings from each one of these churches. So from Edinburgh, Texas, I moved to Brownsville, and there I pastored the Brownsville and San Benito churches. And for the first time, I was on my own in the sense that I didn't have a senior pastor to work with, to mentor me and to guide me. And I feel like that was a good transition. It was not easy because I was happy being a youth pastor. I loved the work that I was doing, and transitioning to be a senior pastor changed. There was more administration involved, but I loved the Brownsville and San Benito churches. Different churches, great communities to work with, definitely challenges, but a lot of good things happened. A lot of growth took place. And each church shaped me in the way that I do ministry. Speaking of churches that I worked with, I mentioned Weslaco Seventh-day Adventist Church in Weslaco, Texas. I mentioned the Edinburgh Seventh-day Adventist Church in Edinburgh, Texas. There is Brownsville and San Benito as well. And then from Texas, I transitioned to the Georgia Cumberland Conference with the Park Avenue Seventh-day Adventist Church, and that was also a great experience. Just my relationship there with the local leaders and what that church did for the community and the school that we had there. Also, amazing experiences, amazing friends, and people that I stay in contact with to this day. And it's an incredible thing with social media that all these different churches that I have pastored and ministered to or worked with, I get to still be in contact with the members. We're still praying for each other. We're still aware of each other's lives, and we're still part of this big community, this big family. And one of the things that I remember about the Park Avenue Church is, hurricanes would come and hit Florida. And as Florida is fleeing north, they come right through Valdosta. And all the hotels would fill up, and people wouldn't have a place to stay, and we would open up our church, and people would come and stay there. And still have their washing machine and dryer and showers, and people could come, and there was a kitchen, and we provide the bedding and the things. Or sometimes they'd have their own sleeping bags and things, and they just stay there and sleep and have food and have a place to shower and have a place to do their laundry, and then continue their travels wherever they were going. So I'm glad that we're able to give back to the community. And that happened with every church that I worked with. There was always a community outreach. The San Benito Church had a food pantry, and there was also a health book club that was led by some of the local doctors. The Brownsville Church also did outreach and different free things for the community to come and to enjoy and to learn about health and family, and not just biblical things, but beyond that, and just activities with children. And that's part of, for me, it's what makes ministry so meaningful, is that yes, there is this spiritual dimension that I strongly believe in. But even if you don't believe in that stuff, if you were to come to church, there is other beneficial things taking place that we just do for free. We offer to the community to help add value to the lives of those where there's always a challenge, but I think it's a worthwhile challenge. And with each church that I worked with, I learned and grew from. Also, there was one when I was in Weslaco, I also started helping with the Mercedes Church. And that was a great joy because I was the associate pastor in Weslaco, but then there it was more of I was the main pastor, so I got to lead out in the board meetings and other things, and I just learned so much and grew so much. And they had this super kitchen on, I think it was Wednesday nights or Tuesday nights, I forget now the day, but we just have soup, and people would come in from the community, and we'd feed them and talk with them and get to know them. And didn't have to be a church member. The church members just came together to offer that for anybody in the community that wanted to come and join us. So just a great church, great experiences. I'm very grateful for every church that I worked with. Each one had their challenges. Each one had their joys. And I feel like each one of those experiences shaped me into who I am. And I guess I would say to younger people or to younger Marlon, don't get frustrated with a difficult situation or what may seem like a difficult church or a difficult, I don't know, whatever you want to say it. Some people didn't want to be in these places that are further away from the conference or further away from the big cities, more in the countryside or right there on the border with Mexico. Or some people were like, oh, isn't that place dangerous or this or the other? I enjoyed every church. There was amazing people doing great things. And I would say for a young professional, just learn what you can from where you are, build those relationships, and also, when you transition to a new place, leave behind a good reference, right? It builds up your resume. When people look into who you are and they call back where you have been, leave positive things behind. So I try to, in my ministry, I had never asked to be transitioned from one place to another. I've always worked faithfully where I am, and then I've received a call to other places. So all my transitions have been accepting calls to different places. I've never initiated a call. I've never sent out my resume and asked to be moved. Never. I always felt like God leads, and wherever I am, I just show up and I do the work until I feel like God is calling me to a different place. That's just my personal view, my personal take, my personal journey in ministry. I don't know what yours are like, but for my younger self, I'd say wherever you are, look at what you can do. Look at the resources you do have. Don't compare yourself to other churches, to other places. There is joy and there is meaningful work where you are. Do it faithfully, and God will bless. So I guess that's an approach to life. That's something I tell my younger self. And let me know your thoughts. Do you agree, disagree? I know there's nuances to all of this, but in general, that's the rule that I would encourage myself with. I would tell my younger self, and that's where I am right now. That's what I try to live by. I hope this is helpful. And I guess looking back, the advice I'd give to my younger self or to anybody who might be in ministry and is listening or watching this, or even in your area of work, I would say that the key to success, or as I look back on it, what it seems to me like it was invest in people. Programs, they're interesting and they're fine and they have their place. Invest in the people. Make sure you're available to them, that you reach out, that you connect. Especially with the smaller churches, I had a lot of opportunities to spend time in people's homes, pastoral visitations, having meals together and celebrating. I attended birthday parties and all kinds of things. If I got an invitation, I went and I was there, and just investing in the people, developing, making memories together and doing things together, not just church-related things, not just community service and outreach, but just life in general. For, like I said, graduations, birthing, weddings, concerts, I'd go and I'd support whatever I could. And I feel like that was a good way. It still is a good way to do ministry. It's not just the preaching, it's not just the Bible studies, but it's being present and involved in people's lives. And that's where the relationships come from. And that's how you learn, I think, to minister better, is by being present in people's lives. Now, you're going to make mistakes, and I've had plenty of awkward interactions. Now I kind of lean into the awkward, but it's still my idea. It's still something that I want to do. It's harder now. I'm in a larger church, but it's still, as far as I can, I want to be present. Now, if people are inviting me, I want to make the best effort that I can to be present at different things. I can't make it to everything, but I sure try to make it to a lot of them. And I believe that investing in people is the key, because then your key leaders, they are the ones who are going to help you with the events and with the big things and the outreach and the mission and helping others. All of these things happen when you have good, solid leaders, and you get good, solid leaders by investing in the people, by mentoring, by being there in the happy moments and in the sad moments when they're struggling, when they're looking for work, when things are not going well in their marriage or with their kids. You're there and you're present. It's not about having all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I'm there to walk with them, with my church members, with my friends. I still have friends that are not members of my church that reach out to me. They have a career decision, or they're considering marriage, they're considering transitioning to a different major. They'll still reach out and talk, and I talk with them. And it's not like, oh, I'm not your pastor anymore, I only have time for my church members. No, I think this is just a human being thing. It's about being a follower of Jesus, a child of God. You want to help and mentor others, and this is what I'm here for. And I try to help as many as I can, and especially people that I've developed this relationship over the years. Yes, I want to be here as long as I can, as often as I can. And I appreciate and I value those relationships. Is it difficult? Yes. Do I have all the answers? No. But I want to be there and walk with you so you don't feel alone, so that we can try to figure this out together. And hopefully it'll be helpful, but at the very least, you don't feel alone. So to my younger self, this is what I would encourage you. And if you're listening to this and you feel like this resonates with you, by all means, I think it's just a good way to live life. I don't think this is just for church pastors. I think this is for anyone who's seeking to live a meaningful life. I would say invest in people. If you have to make the choice between things or people, events or people, invest in people. And events and things, they'll come along and they'll take place. But I think if you have to choose, people should be the priority. The relationships are the most important. At least that's my view as of right now. At 39 years old, this is what I feel is important. So I hope you find some value in that. I think that's it for community. And let's transition to just personal discipline and values. And maybe there's going to be some overlap here. So if I was talking to my younger self, what I would say is work hard. Show up ready to work, and work hard. And I have found that it's better to show up and work hard and make mistakes along the way and learn and to grow from them than to be afraid or to be tired or to be lazy and not show up. Showing up a lot of times I think counts as a victory. And there were many times, especially earlier on in ministry, but it still happens, that I was scared and I didn't want to go. But it was important to go, and I just showed up, and then things worked out. It was hard. It was not easy, and sometimes there's tears, and there's sweat, and literally, there can be blisters. It's just hard work, but you show up, and things get better, but they won't get done if you don't show up. So that's something that I would tell my younger self, just show up, because it's important. Consistency, frequency, do what you have to do. So just looking back in my life and in ministry, one thing that I think that has helped me, and I believe I have benefited from this, is I do fewer things, but I do them consistently. For example, I like to teach Sabbath school. I think I've always taught Sabbath school. I don't know if I can say always, but pretty close to always. And it's a weekly thing. Every Sabbath, I show up and I teach. And I enjoy that and that preparation and showing up. I feel it's beneficial for me. I feel it's beneficial for those in my class, whether I was teaching the young adults or the high school age. Usually I taught teenagers and older, or even the adult Sabbath school. You can count on me. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be prepared. We're going to do this. Prayer meeting. Prayer meeting is a huge thing for me. And it's usually not necessarily well attended, at least not at first. But I'll still show up and I'll be there. And in some churches, I was the only one there. I'd show up, turn on the lights, start singing by myself until others showed up. And then we have a short devotional and spend time in prayer. I really believe in prayer. And I would tell my younger self, spend time in prayer. That's one of the big things that I think I learned in seminary. It wasn't necessarily the learning from the books and from the lectures. It was just life was hard and there were so many challenges that prayer became vital. And I think I reached that new level of understanding, realization of how important prayer is. So prayer meeting is a priority for me. I start it wherever I am. I invest in it. I invite people to come. And even if they don't, I'll show up by myself and I'll spend time in prayer, because I really believe it's what makes all the difference in ministry, in life. It's prayer. So what I'm saying, simple things, teaching Sabbath school, simple thing. It's not a big program. Prayer meeting, I keep it very simple. Bible study, prayer, singing. Very simple. Just show up and do it, and it changes life. I find that it's my small habits, my consistent habits that make the biggest difference in my life, as opposed to big events. I've done big events. I've spoken at some of them. I've helped organize others. I've been behind the scenes in many, and those are good. But looking back in my life, in my experience, those have not been the biggest impacts in my life. But rather, it's been the consistency of showing up and working hard every day. As you go through life, it gets hard, you get tired, you get frustrated, you don't know what to do always, but just keep showing up. Like I said, prayer, Sabbath school, preaching. And that has shifted. As a youth pastor, I didn't preach as much. And then as the only pastor, especially in the smaller churches, you don't have a lot of guest speakers. I preach this virtually every Sabbath. So I'm doing Sabbath school, I'm doing prayer meeting, and I'm preaching. And here at the larger church, I still preach fairly often. And I teach Sabbath school every Sabbath. And if I'm not here, usually I'm somewhere else and I'm preaching and teaching and doing those things. So I really feel like that's important. It keeps me growing. And I've added these things, like these videos or the podcast or the blog. I didn't have to. Nobody told me to. I just wanted to have one more thing that's consistent. Writing out my sermons, my blog posts. It helps me think through things better. It helps me organize my ideas. And I know most of my church members probably don't read it. People who read it many times from other countries. But it's something, it's there, and the exercise of going through that consistently, it really helps. So to my younger self, I would say, show up, work hard, and be consistent. You don't worry about the big, flashy things. Rather, be consistent in the smaller things, and those things add up to big changes. So that's me. I think I'm like the tortoise, if you're comparing the tortoise and the hare. I'm the slow and steady guy. I'm the one who shows up every day and does what needs to be done. And I like to lead that way. I like to be consistent, dependable, reliable. And I would tell my younger self, be that. That will help you in the long run. I feel like this would be helpful in other careers as well. I definitely felt like it was helpful in other things that I did before coming full-time into ministry. But you let me know. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I just find that it works for me in my life. It has worked. I believe I'm benefiting from that. And if you're a young pastor and you're considering ministry, I'd say find the things that you enjoy, the things that are meaningful, that disciple others, and then show up and do that consistently, because that's how you get better. That's how you tweak it. So when I was an associate pastor in Edinburgh and in Westlaco, I would go to UTPA, the University of Texas, Pan American, or University of Texas, UTRGV, Rio Grande Valley. I'd show up every Tuesday and Thursday, and I meet with the kids, and we'd pray, we'd eat, I'd bring food, and we'd have a Bible study every Tuesday and Thursday, because I wasn't preaching. I wasn't the senior pastor. I wasn't preaching that often. So I do that. So just a consistent thing, and that had a big impact on the young adults and the college students of those areas. So some of them, I got to do their wedding later on. I got to do their baby dedication. Some of them were still in contact to this day. I missed some of their weddings. I was invited, but because of transitions and things happening in my life, I couldn't make it there. But just the fact that I was invited meant so much. And I believe that this came out of that consistency, me just being consistently present. It wasn't a big program. It was this great insight. Oh, you're so smart and you're so great. I think I'm about average. I think what makes the difference, encouraging my younger self, if I was talking to my younger self, not bragging, but it would be just continue to show up. Just be consistent, be dependable, be reliable. And I find that goes a long way. Here's another one, trusting in God. So listening to this, I'm not sure exactly of my audience, right? You could be someone who's listening to this episode. It's the first one. Maybe you don't believe in God, or maybe you believed in God in the past and now you're not sure. Wherever you are, this is where I am. When it comes to God, I believe in God. I believe the Bible is the inspired word of God. You can think it's silly. You can have your opinions on it, and that's fine. I really believe in it with all my heart. And here's the benefit that I feel like I have received from this. And this is something my parents instilled in me when I was a baby. I don't remember learning about Jesus. It's been there from the very beginning. And here's what I feel like I have benefited from this. Because of my view that God is a powerful, all good, right, being, it gives me a sense of peace. Whenever things are going crazy and I'm not sure what the future holds, and it's scary, and it kind of brings some anxiety, whether it's the economy, whether it's politics, whether it's just my home life, my marriage, my kids, my health, my work, whatever it is, and when it feels like it's beyond my control, I can rest in my faith and belief and trust that God is in control, that God is ultimately good. So even if it's hard and even if it's challenging right now, ultimately good will come out of it. And that allows me to sleep at night. That allows me to continue to show up. That allows me to continue to be generous and honest and kind, because it's not about me clawing out by my own strength. It's about God working through me and God providing for me. And if I can just focus on being honest and being kind and being generous and trusting in God, and I do my part, and I always try to do whatever is within my control, but the things that are beyond my control, I trust in God. And I go to sleep, and I get up the next day, and I show up again. And God has never failed me. He has always come through. Now, it's been hard, and there's been tears, and there have been sleepless nights, if I'm completely honest, just wrestling and praying to God. But ultimately, I trust in Him to take care of things, to take care of my family, to provide for all of my needs. And I do want to do my very best, not as a way of purchasing anything, but I think that's just what God calls me to do in life for the benefit of those around me. That's why I do my very best. Out of respect for God, as a response for His love, and a desire to help others. But the things beyond my control, that's all on God. And even when it's under my control and I mess up, like I forget a date, I double book myself, I didn't do something I was supposed to do, I still rely on God and His mercy. And it gives me peace, and it helps with my anxiety, and it keeps me positive, and it keeps me showing up and moving forward. So for whatever it's worth, that's what faith in God means to me, and how He has helped me in a practical sense. Outside of the spiritual realm, this is how I feel has benefited me and my family throughout life. And I would say to my younger self, just trust in God. It's always going to work out. You may not know the future, but just do what you know now. Just follow faithfully what you do know about God and leave the rest up to Him. It's going to work out. Another thing, budgeting and sticking to the budget. Like I mentioned, in my very first church, the Wesleco Seventh-day Adventist Church, working with Pastor Jerry Chrisman, he decided to do a Financial Peace University. Now, I'm not sure what your opinions are on Dave Ramsey. Some people like him, some people don't. Whatever you feel about him. For me, that was a huge blessing, because it was early on. I just gotten married, and it really helped my wife and I to value budgeting and the importance of budgeting, and also to avoid debt. So we've always been very careful in our married life together at having a budget, sticking to the budget, avoiding debt, and just managing our money in a certain way. Many times, families don't talk about this. We're not taught this in school. At least I wasn't in high school or college. And that gave me a great foundation. Now, you can disagree with certain parts of it. I'm not saying you have to follow that one, but the idea of just having a budget, sticking to a budget, and some of the things that I have found helpful. For example, whenever my wife and I do have a debt, whether it's car payments, whether it's college bills, whatever it is, we tackle that first and we pay that off. Whenever we're planning on going on vacation, we look for, how much are the plane tickets? How much is going to be for hotel, for gas, for stays, for fees, entrance fees, for whatever, tickets. And we save up ahead of time so that when we go on vacation, we have those funds to use, as opposed to going on vacation, coming back, and then having to pay for it. When our car is paid off, we pay ourselves car payments because we're looking forward to buying the next car. Or if we're in a house and we know that we're going to need to replace some of the appliances, the oven, the fridge, something, we look at the price, we see what the monthly payments would be, we pay ourselves that amount so that we can pay it in cash and avoid going into that. Now, there are emergencies, there are things that come up, but at least my wife and I are together in this, and we stick to it, and we move forward in it, and it has been a great blessing to us. So I would encourage you to find something that works for you, but definitely make a budget. If you're married, talk with your spouse about it, and make the decisions that you feel are appropriate for where you are in life, your level of income and expenses and whatever it is. But planning ahead and saving ahead of time definitely brings a lot of peace to our marriage and to life in general. And God has always been faithful with us in that. So for what it's worth, I believe that a budget is a great thing to have and to stick to. And here's a random thing that I added to this list. I don't know why I was thinking about life in 39 years and what have I learned. And I guess this is more of just a personal thing about me. I eat home-cooked meals most days. And for breakfast, I'll make I'll get a banana or two, and I'll mush them with a fork, and I'll mix old-fashioned oats, the steel cut, not boiled oats, and I mix it in, and I'll eat that for breakfast. And I do that for my kids. My son still sticks with it. My daughter doesn't like it so much. My wife doesn't. But for me, like that's a good breakfast. I like it. It's what I eat, as opposed to highly processed cereals or other things. And if you eat that, that's fine. And sometimes I eat that too, especially if I'm traveling. But if I have my choice, banana and oats, and something else, some whole wheat bread or something, I always try to buy a whole wheat. It's a personal preference. It's what I do. Rice and beans for lunch, and a salad, and then some other things. But I could eat that all day. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's what I eat, and every now and then I'll have somebody ask me about health or whatever, and what do I do? And like, I eat simple home-cooked meals. And I'm not miserable. I'm not saying you have to do this, and I'm not saying like, oh, I wish I could eat. I could go out to eat at restaurants more often. It gets expensive though, and it's not as healthy, and I'll still do that. I'll leave it for special occasions. But most often, I'll just drive home, and I'll eat a home-cooked meal. And it's my choice, even if it takes up a little bit more time. I'll schedule around it because I feel like it's important. It has helped me to stay healthy, and I believe in physical health. I believe in the health message as a Seventh-day Adventist. I think it's important. It helps me to be a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better leader, a better spiritual mentor. So I take care of my health, and I believe that eating home-cooked meals, it's one of those things. You don't have to. It's just something about me. If you're curious, now you know. And for dinner, usually I have soup, and I like it. It's what I do. Lentil, split peas, vegetables. It's fairly easy to do. You throw everything in the crock pot, and you get better at doing it as time goes on. And it's something that I value. I enjoy it, and it's part of my life. And I think also helps me stick to the budget. If I buy a big bag of rice and a big bag of beans, and it goes a long way. And then it's just the salad things that I have to buy on a constant basis. And fruit, fresh fruit, I like to always have it around at home. If the kids want a snack, they can have fruit, so they can have nuts. That's our go-to choice. Now that can get a little bit expensive, but I think what you save in the medical bills and the value you get just from being healthier, I think it's worth it. And I try to avoid the highly processed things. Now I still eat it. I'm not saying they're not allowed to eat it and they can't. I just avoid it, but I do buy it, and we do have it at home, and the kids can have it sometimes. But the preference is fruits and veggies for snacks. They like carrot sticks, or we have apples and oranges and tangerines, something you can eat with your hands, easy and quick. And nuts, I love nuts. So it's what we do. If you're curious, that's what it is, and I find it helpful. But you do you. But this is something that I have found that has helped me stay healthy and feel good. And it's something that I do. It's a value that I have personally. And looking back in life, I think it's been meaningful, and it's also affordable. So I guess this is something that I kind of already talked about, as far as it's under here, under discipline and values, but I mentioned it earlier. It's just consistency, honesty, and investing in relationships. It's something that's meaningful. And as a pastor, so for anybody who's in ministry and is listening to this, I just say preach the Bible. If I'm torn between two things, move towards this simple, stick to the Bible and do that. And it's great when you have a great story. It's great when you have a great illustration. But don't go seeking this amazing thing. Preach the Bible, and the amazing things will come, and they will happen. If you're having to focus on something, I start with the text, stick to the text. And then the illustration and these other things, they'll show up. Don't go chasing illustration to build a sermon on top of that. That's just, a tip in case there's pastors, ministers, preachers listening to this. I have found that helpful in my ministry, and for whatever it's worth. I believe that preaching and teaching the Bible is one of the things that I'm called to do. I find meaning in that, and I find that it's been helpful in my ministry. So I think I've covered most of the things I had here listed out. I guess, yes, one last thing. I mentioned prayer. Pray specifically for the Holy Spirit. The Bible says that if we who are evil Jesus said, if we who are evil are willing to give good gifts to our children, how much more is the Father willing to give the Holy Spirit to those who ask? And I should have written down the reference, Luke 11, towards like the first third of the chapter or so, the first half, it's mentioned in there along with some parables on prayer. And I hope I'm remembering that correctly. If not, leave me a comment correcting me. And then another thing that I pray for regularly is wisdom. The Bible also talks, if anybody lacks wisdom, let him ask, and God gives freely in abundance to those who ask. So I'm paraphrasing here. But so since the Bible tells me to pray for these things, I pray for them. Every day I'm praying for wisdom, and I'm praying for the Holy Spirit. And I believe that those consistent prayers, continual prayers for those things have helped me a lot. And so I recommend that to everybody who's listening. Include that in your prayer. When you pray for whatever you already pray for, include asking for the Holy Spirit. That's the key to success in life. And as for wisdom, we all need more wisdom, and God says He's willing to give it. So ask for those things. Those are two things that I would tell my younger self, start this sooner. Pray for the Holy Spirit and pray for wisdom all the time, every day. It makes a difference. So I think everything else I already mentioned. Don't just talk about doing the thing, do the thing. This goes for leaders, for pastors, for people in general. I've worked with so many people that talk this big talk of everything they're going to do. And I'd rather work with people who just show up and do the thing. Do fewer things, but get them done. That's just my tip. If I was talking to my younger self, that's something I would do. Just focus on a few things, do them consistently, do them well. Don't worry about doing too many things and then just having many things halfway done or done poorly. That's just a principle that I have, and I try to stick to it, and I find that it has been meaningful. And one more thing, I'm glad that I wrote this down. I would have forgotten it. Fail at new things. So for me, for example, doing this video, it took me a long time to set this up. And then I had done a previous one. Then I didn't like it. So it takes time and getting the lighting and getting the equipment and learning how to do it. But, there's been a lot of failure along the way, but I feel like with each video, I've gotten better. With each podcast, I've gotten better. So fail at new things. I added blogs, I added podcasts, I'm adding these videos now, and I'm doing shorts on social media. So on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, I need to get more active on that. So try new things, fail at new things. Failing at the same old things is boring. So once again, I added a few things, and then I try to be consistent with these things. And just try new things. And as a church here, I am always encouraging my leaders to try new things, to fail at new things. I'd rather have leaders who are trying and failing and learning and moving forward than to have leaders who don't do anything or who just always do the same things. This may sound like a contradiction, like I said, about consistency. I feel like it's important to have prayer and prayer meeting and to preach on Sabbath morning. But how I do prayer meeting in the way that my sermons are structured and the way that I preach, that changes, that shifts. I try new things. I try different things. I change the routine, but I'm also consistent. So for whatever it's worth, for what it makes sense, right? So I try to do these videos or do these podcasts or post on my blog regularly, but I'm trying new things as well, changing it up and seeing what works and what doesn't. And then once again, just taking care of your health, eat healthy, exercise. Exercise is something I've gotten back on. Once I moved here, it took me a little while, but just be outdoors, do something that makes you sweat, and yet you have to catch your breath. And if you're in Georgia, I remember just walking to the mailbox, you sweat just because, that's how it was. And I guess I had a bigger property. It was a longer walk there. But just do something to get your heart pumping. And I find that talking to my younger self, get a gym membership and schedule it like you would schedule a doctor's visit. Schedule it like you would schedule a church event. Schedule like you would schedule a visit with a church member, and make sure that you go and you get your exercise. Here's something that I learned. It's not just about my physical well-being. My biggest motivation to work out is that I feel better emotionally. It helps me to not burn out. It helps me to not, as I struggle with depression or anxiety or whatever it might be, it helps me not fall into those things when I'm pushing my body. Because when I'm pushing really hard, my mind is clear. I'm not worried about whatever meeting I had, whatever meeting I'm going to have, or this event or the other. No, I'm just in the moment. And being in the moment for me is incredibly beneficial. It happens when I'm giving a Bible study. I'm completely there. I'm all in, zeroed in, focused. I love those experiences, especially one-on-one. When I'm preaching, I'm all in. I'm present in the moment. It's the in-between things. It's the office hours. It's the trying to sleep at night. It's these moments where you're just thinking about all these things, and it can be overwhelming. Like I'm checking my emails. So getting the exercise in, it helps so much. There's so many health benefits. And I would tell my younger self, schedule exercise and do it. Don't let work crowd out your physical activity. I'm telling myself this, I'm telling my younger self this. It's good and it's great, and it's not about looking different. It's not about your weight and the scale changing necessarily, and that does happen over time. Do it for the health benefit, for the mental health benefit. And so I'm doing that, and I've tried different things, and I'm always glad to be doing something. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but if you have any personal questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to talk more about this. Rest is also important. And I'm doing better at this, and I tell my younger self, schedule a bedtime and then go to bed. Stop whatever you're doing and go to bed. Get plenty of sleep. It's better to go to bed early and wake up earlier to do the work, to finish the work that you're doing, than to just stay up late. This is the way my body works. This is for me. If you find this beneficial, give it a try. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but for me, if I was talking to my younger self, I'd say around 10 o'clock, I set an alarm now. 10 o'clock, I start turning everything off and heading to bed. And then I get up earlier and try to get things done in the morning, but don't stay up past that. Younger Marlon, it's not going to be good for you, and it's not ideal. Sleep is so important. It's like a superpower. The more that I read about it, the more that I listen to people talking about it, the more I realize it's important. And rest overall is so important because it helps your productivity. You're not being more productive by not resting. Actually become less productive. Your mind is foggy. I don't drink coffee for many reasons. But I believe, I feel, you can correct me. Once again, leave in the comments. Let me know. If you're having to drink a ton of coffee just to function, just to stay awake, maybe you need to get caught up in your rest. Maybe your body's telling you that you need to rest, you need to sleep, you need to slow down so that you can function at an optimal level. Maybe you're cashing checks that you're going to have to pay later on. I don't know. I'm not a physician. So this is just my personal view on it, my take on it. If I can't function, if I'm too sleepy, I need to take a break. Take a power nap. I'm great at those. My wife hates me for that. I can lay down for 10 minutes and get up, and I'm good to go. Whatever you need to do, make sure you're resting. As a Seventh-day Adventist, I believe in the Sabbath rest. The seventh-day Sabbath is a day to rest. Now, I'm busy that day with ministry, but I also try to find, whenever I can, some time to rest. But everybody, have that balance. So exercise, eating healthy, rest, drink water. This is so important. In college, I think is when high school. Towards the end of high school, I started realizing the importance of drinking water, and then it's become more and more a part of my life. Just drink water all the time. And now in Idaho, it's a lot drier than it was in Georgia. I definitely drink more water, and it's so important. It helps flush out the system. It helps you feel better, circulation, your heart, your brain. I wake up, one of the first thing I do when I wake up is, waking up, I have a big water bottle next to my bed, and I just drink a lot. It helps flush out the system, get me going for the day, helps wake me up. Then I have my devotional and other things that get going with my day. But drinking water first thing in the morning and having that prayer time is so important. Sunshine, I know in the winter it's difficult. Try to get some natural sunshine, get it in your eyes. You don't have to stare at the sun. But if you're out for a walk, take off your sunglasses for 10 minutes or so. Your eyes will absorb that. You can look into that. Once again, I'm not a physician. It's just something that I find helpful. And fresh air. And I need to do better with sunshine and fresh air in the winter. I tend to be more indoors, but it's important, and I'm encouraging you in that, and I believe that has been helpful to me in my life. So that's it. I hope you got to know a little bit more about me. I hope this challenges you and encourages you. I'd love some insights from you and or questions from you. What are your thoughts on the things that I shared? I'd love to know your opinions. And once again, there will be links to all of the things that I mention or in blog posts and other things. I'll put the links on the description either of the podcast or the YouTube channel. Check out my blog, Pr.Marlon.com. That's Pr.Marlon.com. The PR is for Pastor Marlon, Pr.Marlon.com. I was looking for a name that wasn't taken already, and that one worked, and there's so much more on there. Reach out to me. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like for me to talk about. I know this was a different episode, not necessarily spiritual growth directly related, but I think it's life in general. And I don't know. I think that younger me would have benefited from hearing these things. Let me know if you felt like it was beneficial. And until next time, may God bless you.